Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wall Street Hackers from the Pod TV network. We're one of the top rated shows on the network and one of the top investment shows that you'll see. And with that, of course, we do have a investment guru who's going to be leading the discussion. He's a graduate of UCLA, which is now part of the Big Ten, as we well know. Also, received a degree in economics, went to receive his law degree at the University of Miami School of Law, and his master's in business administration from NYU. With that, he spent over 17 years in Wall Street and hails from the New York City area. So with that, we're going to bring in the hacker himself to let us know what the investment world is today and where it's going. We'll bring in Mr. Peter Bennett. Peter Bennett, welcome to your show.
Oh, thanks. Hi, Nick. Hi, audience. Welcome back. We took a few weeks off for the summer, but now most Thursdays and most Saturdays until around the Christmas season, we'll probably be on just about every week or every week. So you can catch us for investment advice and the most interesting news, I think. So we always start with the markets. And as we predicted, I could say so many times on the show, as I said, but yeah, I don't get everything right, but it's a high percentage. Anyway, as predicted, the markets, even though they're still delusional about inflation, are starting to get more and more concerned about inflation. Now, the reality may hit this fall. Sooner or later, it's going to hit. It might hit quickly in the fall, or it might hit over the next year. But either way, I don't like the way the market is positioned because it assumes inflation will get under control, soft landing, everything's going to be perfect. There's a lot of problems with that. But number one is energy. So we've been saying on the show for since June, at least, that a lot of the positive inflation numbers the market has seen were due to energy prices coming down, because energy prices came down every month until June. But that's a very temporary situation. And since then, since June alone, oil prices are up about 27%. The price of WTI went to $87.12 per barrel yesterday. That was the highest in a year. And 2023, as I said, June, oil prices started going up considerably, and I think they could go a lot higher. And one of the reasons, by the way, among many reasons, is that the U.S. is now a net importer of oil for the first time since when we were a net exporter in 2020. So there's so much going on with oil, but this is one of the main themes of Wall Street Hackers. This is one I believe very firmly. So oil and gas companies have been underinvesting very dramatically since 2015. By one estimate, which I think came from one of our investments calls, they said oil and gas companies are putting in 40% too little to maintain oil and gas production where it is. Now, we might not see that today or tomorrow, but these are 5 to 7 year projects. So sooner or later, putting in 40% too little capital into oil and gas projects, that's going to catch up to you. And when might be sooner than later, because they've been doing this since 2015. The oil and gas companies have been putting in less than half of what they invested up to 2015. Now, why is that? That's such a dramatic undercapitalization. Number one, governments around the world. The U.S. government and so many other developed world governments have this green agenda. Now, I understand it, and I have concerns about global warming. That's a separate issue because they're not really doing anything, and anything they're hurting their own cause. But in terms of oil prices and natural gas prices, they are putting in regulations, over 100 regulations, I believe, from the Biden administration alone, restricting access to government properties in the U.S., so many anti-energy policies. Number two, the oil and gas companies are adjusting, and so they're putting in about 10% of their budgets into ESG projects alone, things like carbon sequestration. So if you're putting 10% of your budget into carbon sequestration, that's 10% you're not investing in oil and gas. And three, if the oil and gas industry is terminal, and I don't think it is, at least many projections have 2050 natural gas use in the world much higher, and oil pretty stable till at least 2040 or 2050, depending on the forecast. But let's say you're in a terminal business, or you're concerned, or even have that idea that you might be in a terminal business. You're not going to keep investing until the last minute. You're going to start paying dividends to your shareholders. You're going to start buying back shares. You're going to prepare for the end of your business. Now, I don't think that's going to happen for a long time, but someday, maybe in 50 years, maybe in 30 years, maybe sooner, they will develop alternatives to fossil fuels, but it's a long way off. And so the problem is the market has, again, inflation coming down because everything's going to be perfect. But if you look at the 70s, for 11 years, inflation was over 8%. The main cause, energy, high oil prices, high gas prices. So there's a lot of evidence that we're probably in that same phase right now. It's going to take a long time to reverse this undercapitalization. Even if we could, we can't do it quickly. Also, the other thing is the Fed has failed to control inflation in so many ways. Admittedly, unemployment has finally come down, but there's still 8-point-something million job openings. They're far from getting there. History shows they need to be over 2% more than inflation, or at least over inflation, and they haven't done that on a consistent basis. So, and they don't even know, really, and that's the quote of the week. So let me go to the quote of the week, which was so important. But before I say that, I wouldn't be surprised to see an 8% drop in the markets in the next maybe September and October. We're talking about the most volatile markets. Everybody's nervous now because the inflation numbers are coming in higher. And by the way, the August marked the first increase in inflation in the consumer price index in a year. Well, what a coincidence. June oil prices went up and reversed towards higher. Now consumer prices are following. Oil runs the economy in so many different ways. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a big decline in the next 2 months. Or the other scenario is if everybody just ignores reality, it'll just stay flat and gradually go down, or stay flat for a year or two. But, that's the problem with longer, higher for longer, but not that high strategy of the Fed. They're not really impacting things enough. So all of this doesn't matter to point to my investment portfolio, and I don't think it should matter to yours, because the theme of our show is invest in businesses that are strong in any scenario. So in businesses with a bright future, defensive stocks, and most importantly, whatever stock allocation you have should be in dividend growers and dividend payers. Why? This is a chart. Kim's not here, so I'm assuming we won't be able to put it up, but I'm just going to show you this chart. You can look dividend growers, dividend payers, and the S&P 500, those three at the top on the right. So if you look at that, you could see the bottom line is over a period since 1973 to 1922, 50 years, 50 years, dividend payers more than doubled the performance of the S&P 500 equal weighted, and dividend growers and initiators tripled it. So whatever stocks you have, and that's really has to be sensitive to what your financial situation is. Whatever stocks you have probably should almost be in energy, and also in dividend payers and dividend growers. And especially I like personally dividend payers and growers who are also in energy. Quote of the week, and this just reaffirms the uncertainty that's out there. So this is from Barron's Daily 8/28. Quote, I'm quoting the article. Fed's Powell didn't give investors any answers. And they said, while hawkish in tone, it was a speech. This was the speech at, I believe, Jackson Hole. But I'm not sure where he gave it. Yeah, it was Jackson Hole. So while it's hawkish in its tone, it was a speech devoid of answers. Powell's vagueness and the Fed's data-dependent approach means investors will have to wait for the answers they crave about the future path of interest rates. Well, that brings up a lot of points. Number one, the Fed has no idea if they're higher for not that high, but for longer, high for longer, but not that high strategy will work and provide a soft landing. And the Fed has been behind the curve in a year. So of course they should be uncertain. They've been wrong for a year and a half now. And finally, this approach of we'll do it with no pain. Well, I don't think it's going to work because it's the pain, the slowing of the economy, the dropping of the stock market potentially. There's even a theory that the stock market leaves the economy rather than the economy leaves the stock market. Nobody knows which one it is. But with no pain, no gain in terms of fighting inflation. And this could go on for a decade or 5 years or whatever, but the market has not priced that in at all. So we'll see, but it's a very volatile potential time. Okay, new topic, 5 most interesting stories of the week. This one's positive. U.S. scientists say it, but there's evidence to the effect that they've developed a new cancer-stopping pill that can annihilate tumors. A group of U.S. researchers say that they developed a new cancer-killing pill that could target and kill solid tumors while leaving healthy cells unharmed. And that's according to research findings published on August 1st in the Cell Chemical Biology Journal. The article is titled Small Molecular Targeting of Transcript Replication. The drug is called AOH 1996. They're still going to have to do tests on this. This is, as always with drugs, but I guess the 2 points there is, 1, this could be a real miracle drug, and 2, this is one reason why I'm a little cautious. I've been very cautious about the drug industry. 1, because of the government clamping down on Medicare deals with drug companies, and the other one is because if they really cure things, that's not going to be good for drug sales, but it'll be great for people, obviously. Number 2, to politics. So I was surprised, but supposedly support for Governor DeSantis, quote, collapsed. That's what an article said after the debate. A lot of people said he was one of the several winners, along with Vivek and Nikki Haley. But in a survey of 600 Republican primary voters, 59% said they would be Trump would be their first choice, and only 13% now support DeSantis. Time is running, and whether Trump will be the most electable candidate, I don't know, but it seems like most likely he will be the nominee. And I'm going to make a call now, but I'm not certain on this one, obviously. But I did, by the way, call Clinton as the president before anybody did years ago. But I think he very well may pick South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem as his running mate, his vice president running mate. We'll see. He might consider Tim Scott. He might consider Vivek Ramaswamy. But my bet is it's going to be Kristi Noem, very likely. Most interesting story number 3. More than 6 in 10 Americans say they are now living paycheck to paycheck. This is a big decline in terms of financial health because of the Federal Reserve's battle to tame inflation. A survey by the lending company found that 61% of adults barely making ends meet in July, an increase from 59% last year. And this just shows why the Fed needs to fight inflation. They can't walk away before they get the job done, because this is a tax on everybody and will crush the middle class and lower income people too. People on fixed incomes, everything. They're going to have to fight inflation. And that's the point. So people who complain, the Fed's going too fast, they haven't made enough progress, most likely, very likely, especially if oil prices start going back up. Most interesting story, number 4, India landed on the moon. I hadn't seen that. I was like, what? Yes, India sent an unmanned spacecraft to the moon. It was called Chandrayaan-3. And all systems were domestically manufactured. What's interesting, I guess, about this too is many forecasts have it that by 2050 or sooner, China will be the largest economy in the world. India is supposed to be, by many forecasts, the second largest, and the U.S. third. If the U.S. isn't smart, that will definitely happen, and it will take some real good strategy to avoid that. But that's pretty amazing that India landed on the moon. Finally, residents of New York City could see their electric bills double in just 2 years. And they actually will, pretty surely. There's two causes of that. One, New York City is raising taxes, which are going to be passed through to the consumers in New York City. But also, it has a lot to do with New York State's energy efficient goals and green goals. And so it's going to drive energy costs in New York through the roof. The problem with this is, again, okay, solar is good. It's good to fight green energy, to fight fossil fuels to a point. But the problem with New York and many of the northeastern states is they battle natural gas just as fervently. Now, natural gas is the cleanest fuel, and also it's much more efficient in terms of pollution than oil, and even much, much more than coal. And we burn a ton of coal and oil in the U.S. and the world is doing the same thing. So they fight natural gas. The northern states won't even let gas pipelines in. They won't let drilling of natural gas. But the problem is then they wind up using much more oil and coal when natural gas would help. So in the United States and the world in 21 and 22, and I'm predicting 23, pollution, CO2 went up in all those categories. So what are the green energy progressives doing? They don't have a good strategy to fight it. They're just dreaming that solar and wind will just magically take over. It won't work economically, and they need to think it out a little better. That said, let's take a quick advertisement, then we'll talk about the investment of the week and our panel discussion of the week. See you soon.
One of the things that business owners forget a lot is to prepare for their own retirement.
Hi, my name's Nick Palavita, and today I'm with a very special guest, a certified financial planner, a chartered retirement plan specialist, and president of National Pension Partners, Max Couliet. Max, tell me what you do at National Pension Partners.
Well, Nick, we help successful small businesses and professionals put together retirement plans that provide them the maximum retirement benefits and big tax deductions at the same time.
Well, how do you do this?
Well, we get on an internet conferencing system with the client. We review their goals, what they want to accomplish, and then put together strategies to help them in implementing a retirement plan that benefits them, not everybody else.
Well, that sounds really good, but how much does this cost?
Well, it's really not bad because the first consultation is free. That allows us to go through and discover whether this strategy works for that business and for you as the business owner, and helping you maximize your retirement.
Well, Max, how do we get this free appointment?
It's really pretty simple, Nick. You can either go to our website below or call us at 877-252-1692, and then we can set up a time with either myself, Nick, or one of our other retirement plan specialists, another CPA or advisor in the office, to go over this with you and make sure it fits for you.
Hi, my name is Lewis Haupt. I work with National Pension Partners, and I work with businesses to allow them to put the maximum away that they can for themselves and to save taxes.
Hi, I'm Brad Coyle, and I'm the brokerage manager at National Pension Partners. We're always analyzing plan fund choices in order to ensure the participant's success.
If you want more information on how we can help you and your business put more money away in a retirement plan than you ever thought possible, contact us at the website below or call us at 877-252.
And we're back. So what to do? Well, I really covered it this week earlier, but once again, be very defensive, especially now in the next 2 months, which are very volatile, and when the market may be realizing that inflation is not under control, and this is going to be a long process, or the Fed may even be raising rates. If I was the Fed, personally, I would have already raised a little more, and I would probably raise soon, but they probably won't because they're political, and they're just trying to play this no pain, no gain, rather no pain and a gain scenario. So also, I think you have to own energy. It's the one industry I think has a great opportunity for returns, especially pipelines. Although this week we're going to cover a non-pipeline investment. And as the chart shows, of course, own dividend payers and dividend growers with whatever stock allocation. So the dividend stock this week is actually another partnership, but it's a different kind of partnership. But first, the disclaimer. This show is always only for entertainment, of course. There's never a guarantee on any investment recommendation, and that's true of everybody. No matter anybody says this is guaranteed, that's bad news. If you're talking about a CD, okay, that's guaranteed, but only against nominal terms. But against inflation, you don't even know. But nobody can guarantee anything. So, and you really need to consult your financial advisor because everybody's situation is different. So, KRP, Kimberly Royalty Trust. I upped my allocation now to 3%. I really wrestled with this one. I almost went higher, but 3% seems right. It's a royalty trust that owns about 16 million acres of oil and gas land in 28 states. And I think that oil and gas is going to be, on land especially, is going to be very valuable because more and more companies are going to the oceans and the Gulf to get oil, and that's very expensive. So they own a lot of land, and they have, I think it's about a 10-year reserve of the oil. It has an interesting tax structure because it generates dividends. It's the only partnership I know that does this. It actually generates dividends rather than MLP distributions. But recently I looked at it, and 3/4 of its dividend was return of capital. So you're not, and there may be depreciation and depletion in there too, I'm not sure. But in any case, so you're getting a very high, or very high by most standards, yield, and is mostly tax-free. Also, you don't have to worry about, I believe, UBTI in a IRA with KRP. Unlike the other MLPs, if you generate too much UBTI, you can be taxed over $1,000 in income. So that's another advantage. So what do I really like about it? One, it has a 10% yield. That's not bad in these days. And it has price to cash flow of 9.7. So it's actually just covering its cash flow yield. But I think its cash flow is going to improve a lot because it recently made a very valuable acquisition. I wouldn't be surprised, depending on oil and gas prices, because it is very dependent on oil and gas, if its distribution went up to maybe 12 or 13% next year. But we'll see where oil and gas is. And that's the thing. This is, unlike the pipelines that are really long-term contracts that are demand-driven, and MPLX is one I love, and I'm going to probably cover that next week. But this one is subject to oil and gas prices. But you know what? It's a perfect hedge to me on a portfolio, because if oil and gas goes higher or even stays where it is, then it's going to hurt the many other stocks. So you know what? For 3% with 10% yield, I think it's a great portfolio balancer. And it probably has a bright future. And if I'm getting 10% in 10 years, I get all my money back. But again, this dividend could go up or down based on prices. On the other side, it's especially a big hedge if oil goes through the roof, because who knows? It seems odd to think of it, but maybe oil will go to 120, 150 a barrel, because at some point this supply-demand curve imbalance may really catch up. So again, be careful, in terms of, your allocations on everything. Pipelines are the best. I'm about 27% energy and mostly pipelines. So we'll cover MPLX next week. But KRP, I've done a lot of analysis, and I think it's worth a little investment in your portfolio. So panel discussion of the week. Question: what is the Biden administration take on immigration policy? And more interesting, and this is the focus, why are they taking their position? So quick background. Number one, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre just said last week, Biden has, quote, done more to secure the border and deal with illegal immigration than anybody else. That's a quote. Number two, Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas said last year, and he's been maintaining this for years, that the Biden administration has operational control of the U.S. border. The Biden administration also now says it's making progress on the issue. So let's look at the actual facts. First of all, Customs and Borders Patrol says 177,000 arrests were made in August alone. Plus, there were 50,000 encounters at the ports of entry. So there were 230,000 encounters with people migrating over the border in just August alone. Now, what that doesn't count is getaways. So that's the ones they're counting. But apparently, some studies say at least 1.5 million illegal immigrants have identified as gotaways and crossed the borders under the Biden administration. a record number of illegal families crossed the border in August, 91,000 out of that group of 230,000. And what's worrisome is most of the others are single males. And that gets into the next question. But by the end of May, just half the year, there were 125 arrests for people on the terrorist watch list. Now, that's again, what about the getaways? Who knows how many more slipped in, because they might be a little more equipped to evade arrest. But 125 were appointed, so that's 250 maybe for the year. And there's been a huge increase in Chinese migrants. I have nothing against Chinese migrants over any others, except for one thing. Maybe China's sending spies over too, because there's no security protections at all. So last year, in 2022, 27,000 Chinese illegal immigrants came in over the borders. And this year it's up 43%. So it doesn't take that many terrorists to cause some damage, as we saw in 9/11 and, bombers and, whatever. That could be very dangerous to our society. And, this is out of control, in my opinion. So the last thing is, even though they say, oh, we've got Operation Control. So first of all, Texas put in large floats that people couldn't climb over on the river, Rio Grande. And then now the U.S. government is suing them, saying, you can't do that. It would actually stop some illegal immigrants. And they also opened up a gate in either a wall or a fence because they said, well, we have to let the antelopes come through. So people are pouring through that gate. It doesn't seem like things are under control. So the question again is, what is their take on immigration? But more importantly, why? What do you think, Nick?
Well, we've had immigration policy problems for decades, Peter. So this is nothing unusual. We had problems under the Trump administration, the Biden administration, the Obama, just goes on and on and on. One problem that we do have is we have quotas, as you know, from individual countries. Most people that come from Europe do not meet the quotas, so they can easily immigrate if you wanted to come from Europe or certain other countries. Now, in my company, we had we didn't bring her in. She came in from South Africa and got a green card. She stayed here for 10 years to become a full U.S. citizen. She didn't like the fact there were illegals coming in because they made her jump through hoops and these people were skipping the line. We had to bring another person from Canada on an HB1 visa to work in our company. So one problem that you do have is you have an immigration laws that are basically antiquated today.
True, very true.
And we, a thing that I keep harping is statute of limitations on the illegals. We have statute of limitations for murder, rape, burglary, assault, all sorts of heinous crimes, yet we do not have a statute of limitations for immigration. So
we don't even follow them. Generally, they just catch and release, and people they lose track of people, or they set court dates years in advance. Yeah.
But you've been here for 5-10 years, and you've never committed a crime. You work. Why shouldn't they be granted immigration?
I see. You're saying just let everybody in. But
no, the people that
I guess
illegal, make them legal through the statute of limitations.
Right, well, my answer is this: that would several answers. One, first of all, I want to say you're right. This has been an unresolved situation for a decade. But the difference is not with millions and millions, maybe 5 million, 3 million, 4 million entering, and with 20 million illegal aliens in the United States now, arguably, it was a problem, and they needed to fix it. And you're right about the H-1 visas, but the reason they don't do the statute of limitations is that would just encourage more people to come in. What they need to do, what they need to do is create a system of legal immigration that doesn't encourage people to come in. And unfortunately, we're starting to run out of time. So let me just throw out a few points. First of all, I think politically, this is a real big mistake. First of all, a survey of registered voters recently said that 51% of registered voters think the border has gotten worse in 2 years. I don't know why it's only 51%. Amazingly, 38% didn't know whether it got worse or better. So that's amazing. I would guess that they watch major mainstream media, and the mainstream media doesn't want to mention this at all. Like, it's happening, millions of Americans. But the other side is it's happening in cities all over the country. I just heard today that a city in New Jersey, because they don't know what to do with all these people, that are pouring in. So they're moving their federal government is trying to move 60,000 illegal immigrants into a New Jersey town that has a population of 50,000 people. Oops. You think anybody's going to notice that? They're also moving a lot into Casper, Wyoming, and all these places. Now, the other thing is New York City has noticed, and Chicago and a lot of other major cities. So Democrats are complaining about the situation. New York City is saying, we can't afford this. We're not getting reimbursed. And, we don't know. So what are they going to do with millions and millions of people, even who are going largely to Democrat cities, and they don't like it? So politically, one, I don't understand it. Two, I cannot understand how 38% of Americans don't know this. Maybe watch our show, diversify your news sources, something. So it's out of control. And the real thing is, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but this is not something that's going to slip by. And it is affecting the economy too, by the way, because the people are coming in, at least in the short run. A lot of them may be very hard workers and may help the economy in 5, 10, 15 years. But right now, it's also hurting inflation. They're eating food, using energy, and a lot of them are dependent right now. So it seems to be a very bad political strategy to me, and it doesn't make sense at all. What do you think, Nick?
I think there should be hearings every day on immigration right now in Congress, and there isn't any. The other thing is there may be technological solutions such as the cell phone. All the immigrants must have a cell phone. And cell phones, you can track people, where they're going, what they're doing, what they're working. It's a trackable cell phone. So we do need to look to technology to find solutions for the immigration.
There are a lot of solutions.
And some new ideas, Peter, but with Congress asleep at the wheel in Washington, D.C., not having hearings every day, they'd rather talk about January 6th or Hunter Biden, but they will not talk about tough issues like immigration. So Congress needs to have hearings every day on immigration.
Well, I think there's so many issues for Congress to address. But first of all, the cell phone won't work because you can leave your cell phone in a parking lot and get a burner phone, or, and there goes the tracking. But there are so many solutions. But we could have a whole show on just solutions. Solutions. Obvious solutions. But the main thing, if the first solution, and I know some people don't like the wall, some people do, but the first thing is the wall is very effective, but you need to fix the wall, finish the wall, but also you need to reform it so that we know every person who's coming in, just like every other country in the world does, like Canada does, like Europe does. If somebody comes in, most of Europe, not all, but if somebody comes in, look, are they going to be a burden? And if they are, okay, we'll take a certain percentage of burden. But what skills do they have? Do they have wealth? Are they coming just for medical treatment? And it's maybe cruel, but you can't just have millions of people who are a burden on the country when other countries say, well, prove that you're going to be a value to us. And let me put it this way, 3 people, 1 applies legally and maybe has to wait 10 years. 2, a person who's productive and is going to become a positive part of society. Or 3, maybe a criminal or a terrorist, a drug dealer who's just passing over the border. It's out of control, and we'll see where it all goes. It's going to be a crazy election year for sure. We're coming up with, and that's about our time. So we'll be back next week. And most weeks, as Kim always says, even though she's not here, get healthy and get wealthy. And we will see you soon. Thanks for watching.
All right. Bye-bye.